In the last class, we have already discussed about the literary sources which help us in writing the history. In today's class, we shall discuss about another important source which help us in writing the history, and that is called as archaeological sources. As the literary sources are classified as written literature and oral literature, in the same way, the archaeological sources, they are also classified into 4 categories. They are inscriptions, shasanagalu, coins, nanyagalu, monuments, smarakagalu, and other ruins. Itare vastugalu, puratana vastugalu. So, the archaeological sources have been classified into 4 categories, namely inscriptions, coins, monuments, and other ruins. So, where these archaeological sources available? The archaeological sources are available not only on the surface of the earth, but they may also be hidden deep inside the earth. So, the archaeological sources like monuments, where they will be available? Usually they will be available on the surface of the earth. And other archaeological sources like inscriptions or coins, they may be available on the earth or they may be hidden deep inside the earth. So, if they are hidden deep inside the earth, then they have to be taken out very carefully. So, the hidden things in the earth are dug out. They are taken out. How? By using the scientific methods. ವೈಜ್ಞಾನಿಕ ವಿಧಾನಗಳನ್ನು ಅನುಸರಿಸಿ ಭೂಮಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಹುದುಗಿ ಹೋದಂತಹ ಅವಶೇಷಗಳನ್ನು ಅತ್ಯಂತ ಜಾಗರೂಕವಾಗಿ ನಾವು ಹೊರಗೆ ತೆಗಿತೀವಿ. So, the hidden things in the earth are dug out. They are taken out by applying the scientific methods, and this process is called as excavation. In Kannada it is called as utkhanana. So, the process of digging out the hidden things in the earth using the scientific methods is called as the process of excavation. See, the oldest civilization of India, that is the Indus Valley civilization, it is also called as the Harappan civilization. We did not know about that. Like 100 years before, we did not know about that. How did that came into light? That came into light during the process of an excavation. The Harappan civilization came to light only because of the process of excavation. ಭೂಮಿಯನ್ನು ಉತ್ಖನನ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ಆ ಭೂಮಿಯೊಳಗೆ ಹುದುಗಿದ್ದಂಥ ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ಉತ್ಕೃಷ್ಟವಾದಂಥ ನಾಗರಿಕತೆಯ ಅರಿವು ನಮಗೆ ಅವಾಗಾಯಿತು. ಸೊ ಬಹಳಷ್ಟು ವಿಷಯಗಳು ಉತ್ಖನನದ ಒಂದು ಕ್ರಿಯೆ ಮುಖಾಂತರ ನಮಗೆ ತಿಳಿಯುತ್ತದೆ. The Harappan civilization came to light only due to the process of excavation. So, what are the things that we may get during the excavation? What are all the things we may get during the excavation? So, during excavation, ruins of buildings, ಕಟ್ಟಡಗಳ ಅವಶೇಷಗಳು, ruins of buildings, then inscriptions, coins, terracotta pieces. Terracotta pieces means ಮಡಿಕೆಯ ತುಂಡುಗಳು. Then bangles, you know that. Beads, ಮಣಿಗಳು. Bone pieces, ಎಲುಬಿನ ತುಂಡುಗಳಾಗಿರಬಹುದು, ಪ್ರಾಣಿಗಳದು ಅಥವಾ ಮನುಷ್ಯರದು. Then metals, all these things are found during the excavation. Then these things are analyzed by applying various scientific methods. So the historians try to analyze these things. How? By applying various scientific methods. Why do they do that? Because to understand the life of the people in those days. So how was the life of the people in those days? That we can come to know if we analyze these archaeological sources like inscriptions or coins or terracotta pieces. So they analyze these archaeological sources by applying various scientific methods in order to understand the life of the people in those days. So let us first discuss about the inscriptions. In Kannada it is called as shasanagalu. So what is an inscription? Inscription means engraved writing. ಕೆತ್ತಲಾದಂತಹ ಬರವಣಿಗೆ. Okay, ನಾವು ಬುಕ್ ಮೇಲೆ ಬರೆಯೋದನ್ನ ನಾವು ಇನ್ಸ್ಕ್ರಿಪ್ಷನ್ ಅಂತ ಕರೆಯಂಗಿಲ್ಲ. ಹೌದಾ? ಸೊ ಓನ್ಲಿ ಇಫ್ ಇಟ್ ಈಸ್ ಎನ್ಗ್ರೇವ್ಡ್, ಕೆತ್ತಿರ್ತಾರೆ ಇರ್ತದೆ ಯಾವುದೋ ಒಂದು ವಸ್ತುವಿನ ಮೇಲೆ, then it is called as an inscription. So inscription means engraved writing. In where they are written? So inscriptions are written on stones, rock, metal, ivory, terracotta and other materials which last longer. So why do they write on stones? Because stones live for longer time. They stay for longer time. In the same way, ivory, Aneya, Danta, all these things are not decomposed. They stay for longer periods. So the inscriptions are written on rocks, stones, metals, ivory and other such materials which last for longer period. Now, are these inscriptions reliable? Whenever we try to write the history, the question of reliability arises. Reliability ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ವಿಶ್ವಾಸಾರ್ಹತೆ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನು ಬರ್ದಾರಲ್ಲ ಎಷ್ಟರ ಮಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ಇದನ್ನ ನಾವು ನಂಬಬಹುದು. Something is written on an inscription. So how much can we rely on this inscription? Now, when these inscriptions will be written? It will be written during the rule of that king, isn't it? So they will be having direct relationship with the events. So inscriptions are more reliable. ಅವನ್ನ ನಾವು ನಂಬಬಹುದು. ಅವು ಹೆಚ್ಚು ವಿಶ್ವಾಸಾರ್ಹತೆಯನ್ನ ಹೊಂದಿರ್ತವ. So inscriptions are more reliable because they have direct relationship with the then events. For example, Ashoka's inscriptions are the earliest inscription found in India. The oldest inscription found in India is Ashoka's inscription. And most of these inscriptions are written in Brahmi script. Every language will be having its own script. Kannada bhashege enada Kannada lipi. Isn't it? So Brahmi script is more or less similar to Devanagari script. So Hindi is a Devanagari script. Brahmi script is more or less related to Devanagari script. So all these inscriptions are written in the Brahmi script. And what is the language? Their language is Prakrit. So we have not heard of this language. What is this Prakrit language? Prakrit language is the language, Sanskrit language used by the common people without using much of grammar. Sanskrit is it has most complicated grammar, but if the same Sanskrit is used by the common people without applying much of the grammar rules, then that language was called as Prakrit. It was easily understood by all the common people. Therefore, Ashoka had made his inscriptions written in Prakrit language. So here in this slide, you can see the picture. Okay, so that is the picture of Sanchi pillar inscription. It is written on a pillar, huge pillar. Pillar means stamba. Okay, on a huge pillar which is there in Sanchi. Sanchi is the name of the place. In Sanchi, there is a pillar and on that pillar, the inscription is written. So, and that inscription belongs to the period of Ashoka. So, this picture shows the Sanchi pillar inscription of Ashoka. So, in this way, thousands of inscriptions are written. Thousands of inscriptions are written in various languages like Kannada, Sanskrit, Tamil, Telugu, Gujarati, like this. In various languages, the inscriptions are written which can be found in different places of India. For example, Immadi Pulikeshi's Aihole inscription. Here you can see the picture of Immadi Pulikeshi, Eradane Pulikeshi. To which empire does he belong? To which dynasty? He belongs to Chalukyas of Badami. Okay, he was the greatest ruler of Chalukyas of Badami. So in this inscription, the details are given about the military achievements of Immadi Pulikeshi, Pulikeshi the second. So here you can see one more picture, that is Kharavela's Hathi Gumpha inscription. So a king by name Kharavela at a place called Hathi Gumpha has written a inscription. So that gives the details of military achievements of King Kharavela. So all these inscriptions like Immadi Pulikeshi's Aihole inscription or Kharavela inscription, all these inscriptions and many other inscriptions, they tell us about the military achievements of those rulers. Now there is one more inscription called as Uttarameru inscription. Here in this picture you can see the Uttarameru inscription. So this is written in a temple, on a rock inside a temple. So this gives us information about the rural administration, how the villages were administered during the rule of Cholas. So Uttarameru inscription narrates, give description about the rural administration of the Cholas. So the second most important archaeological source is coins. So are the coins very big? No, they'll be usually small. So even though the coins are very small, they give us lot of information about various aspects. They contain many important information about different aspects. They are helpful in understanding the geographical extent of the ruler's kingdom who minted the coins. So they are helpful in understanding the geographical extent. So how can we come to know about the geographical extent of the rulers by way of coins? Suppose the Samudragupta's coins are available in Karnataka. So then what do we come to know from that? We come to know that Samudragupta's rule had extended till if Immadi Pulikeshi's coins are available in northern India, it shows that Immadi Pulikeshi had created a very huge empire from south till north. He was ruling even in northern India. So like this, the coins are helpful in understanding the geographical extent of the ruler's kingdom who had minted those coins. They are also helpful in knowing the language of the administration. Usually the coins, on the coins, something will be written in a language. So if it is written in Kannada, then we will come to know that during the rule of that king, Kannada was the language of administration. If the coin has Telugu language, then we will come to know that during the rule of that king, Telugu was the language of administration. So in this way, it helps us to know the language of the administration. Then it also helps us to know the titles that the kings possessed. So the kings will be having so many titles. For example, King Ashoka, he had a title Devanam Priya Priyadarshi. So this title will be written, engraved on the coins also. So by that we will come to know about the titles of the kings. Their religions. For example, if Shiva's picture is there on the coin, what we will come to know? We will come to know that the rulers were the followers of Shaivism. If Vishnu's pictures are there on the coins, we will come to know that the rulers were the followers of Vaishnavism. Like this, we will come to know about the religion. So on some coins, we can also see the pictures of Buddha. So what does it tell? It tells us that the ruler was a follower of Buddhism, like this. Then it also gives us information about the economic condition of that time. So if more gold coins are available, then we can know that the country was prosperous. It was having enormous wealth. So like this, it tells us about the economic condition of the time. Then also about the metal technology in vogue. In order to mint a coin, they must be making use of some technology, metallurgy. Okay, we will come to know about that metal technology that was in practice. Vogue means practice. That was in practice in those kingdoms. It is said that Samudragupta had minted 7 different types of gold coins. During his rule, there were 7 different types of gold coins. So, based on the pictures of those coins, it is said that Samudragupta was a lover of music and he had performed Ashwamedha Yajna. So, in the first picture, you can see that Samudragupta is shown playing the veena. Okay, so this shows that he was a lover of music. And in another coin, there is a picture of horse and the performance of Yajna. So what it shows? It shows that he had performed the Ashwamedha Yajna, horse sacrifice. Then Gautami Putra Shatakarni erased the name of Nahapana on the coins and engraved his name on them. So Gautami Putra Shatakarni, he was the greatest ruler of Shatavahanas. He defeated a ruler by name Nahapana. So after defeating Nahapana, on the coins that Nahapana had minted, he erased the name. He removed the name of Nahapana and engraved his own name of them. How do we come to know? So the erasing of the name Nahapana and writing of the name of Gautami Putra Shatakarni shows that Gautami Putra Shatakarni has defeated Nahapana. In the same way, many Roman coins are available in Bengaluru. So what it shows? It shows that there was a trade contact between Romans and Bengaluru since thousands of years. Before 2000 years only, there were trade relationship between Romans and Bengaluru. So the next important archaeological source is monuments. So monuments are the major source to write the history. So what do the monuments consist of? They consist of temples, palaces, forts, pillars. All these are the examples for monuments. So here in this picture, you can see the picture of Mehruli's iron pillar. So there is a pillar made of iron which is in Mehruli. So this pillar, iron pillar, was installed thousands of years before, and even though it is exposed to rain and heat and all, it is not rusted till now. So that shows that they knew the technology of not allowing the irons to rust. ತುಕ್ಕಿಡಿಲಾರದಂತ ಕಬ್ಬಿಣವನ್ನ ತಯಾರು ಮಾಡುವಂತ ಒಂದು ಕಲೆ ವಿಜ್ಞಾನ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಅವಾಗಲೇ ಗೊತ್ತಿತ್ತು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಈ ಒಂದು ಪಿಲ್ಲರ್ ಇನ್ಸ್ಕ್ರಿಪ್ಷನ್ ಇಂದ ನಮ್ಗ ತಿಳಿತದ. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಇಸ್ ದ ಪಿಕ್ಚರ್ ಆಫ್ ಮೆಹರೂಲಿಸ್ ಐರನ್ ಪಿಲ್ಲರ್. In the same way, what is this picture? This is the picture of Gol Gumbaz in Vijayapura. So this is called as whispering Gumbaz, isn't it? So if you make a sound, it will be echoed for 7 times. So it is a wonderful technology. So still it is a wonder how they might have constructed such a beautiful monument. So these evidences, they show the maturity of Indians in the field of science and technology in those periods itself. So Shah Jahan's Taj Mahal, where is it? It is in Agra. So Shah Jahan was a Mughal emperor. When his wife Mumtaz died, he used to love her so much that he constructed a beautiful monument for her. That is called as Taj Mahal, Mumtaz Mahal. Okay, in short it is called as Taj Mahal. So what it tells us? It tells us the story of love. In the same way, in Chittor in Rajasthan, there is a Vijayasthamba, victory pillar. It tells us about the victory of Rana Kumbha. He was a Rajput ruler. He had defeated some other ruler, and after defeating that ruler, he constructed a huge victory pillar. So this tells us about the victory of Rana Kumbha. The cave pictures of Ajanta, Ellora and Elephanta. So in these caves we can see the wonderful paintings and sculptures. So they tell us about the mastery over painting and sculpture of the people of those days. The temples of Aihole and Pattadakallu, most of you might have seen. This is in Karnataka itself. So they tell us about the evolution of Indian temple architecture, how the Indian temple architecture evolved over a period of time. That gives us the information. In the same way, the monuments of Nalanda. So Nalanda was a very great educational center in the ancient India. So in that time only, they had constructed a beautiful educational center. In the first picture, you can see the ruins of the Nalanda University. In those period itself, lakhs of people from different countries of the world, they used to come to India for the purpose of study. So that much was the fame of Nalanda University. So the monuments at Nalanda. In the same way, in the second picture you can see the madrasa built by Muhammad Gawan in Bidar for providing Islamic education. So these monuments tell us about the importance given by Indians to education during those times. The fort at Srirangapatna. Who had built that? Tipu Sultan. So the fort, Srirangapatnam fort, built by Tipu Sultan, explains the accomplishments in the field of defense technology. What are the arrangements made by Tipu Sultan for defending the fort? We will all come to know about that by seeing the fort of Srirangapatna. So like this, the monuments give us lot of information, like importance given to education, importance given to science and technology, their development in the field of architecture or sculpture or painting. All this information we can get from the monuments. Now let us study about the other ruins. So based on various pieces of terracotta antandre sutta madikegala tundugalu. Okay, so based on various pieces of terracotta, bangles, beads, seals procured during the excavation, one can understand the social, economic, political, religious and cultural life of the people of ancient times. So we will get information about all these aspects by carefully analyzing these various sources available during the excavation. So by applying carbon-14 dating procedure. So if we want to come to know to which period those ruins belong. ಯಾವ ಕಾಲಕ್ಕೆ ಸಂಬಂಧಪಟ್ಟಿದ್ದು 1000 ವರ್ಷದ ಹಳೆದ 2000 ವರ್ಷದ ಹಳೆದ. If we want to come to know about that, what do? We will apply a procedure called as carbon-14 dating procedure on the biological ruins. So by applying this procedure, we can come to know about the accurate period of those ruins. ಆ ಪಳಿಯುಳಿಕೆಗಳ accurate period ಯಾವುದಾಗಿತ್ತು, ಯಾವ ಕಾಲಕ್ಕೆ ಸಂಬಂಧಪಟ್ಟದ್ದು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ನಾವು carbon-14 dating procedure ಇಂದ ತಿಳ್ಕೋಬಹುದು. So in Karnataka, the Buddha stupas came to light during the excavation. While making an excavation, we found out the stupas of Buddha at Sannati in Yadgiri district and also at Rajagatta of Doddaballapura taluk. In the same way, in Tamil Nadu, when the excavations were made at Arkamedu and Pattanam, we found many Roman coins which show us the evidences about the commercial contact between South India, that is Tamil Nadu, and Romans. So like this, from the various ruins also we can come to know about various information related to history. So like this, children, in this class we have discussed what are the different archaeological sources and how they are important for writing the history. Thank you.